Good morning, everyone. My name is BJ White. I'm with Amtrak. This is Ken Stimson with our mechanical department. And the reason for shooting this video today is to give everyone interested the idea of what exactly our trains do when they're up here now in our Portland layover facility, and exactly what's going to take place eventually once they're up in Brunswick and hopefully their new layover facility, which will be inside of a building. At the end of each day, our trains, once up in Brunswick, will be placed into a building where they will then be plugged into ground power and put on their lowest idle, which is an example of what you're hearing or maybe not even hearing right now. Throughout the evening, the mechanical forces will conduct their inspections and their tests, and some of our engines actually are equipped to shut themselves down, and once they're done with their testing processes and procedures, some of these engines will actually shut themselves down completely until they're ready to go in the morning. And what we're going to do now is show an example as to what will take place on any given morning here now in Portland, out in the open, and eventually up in Brunswick once we're inside a building, and how long the process actually takes from the time we prepare the engine to go, the time it leaves the building, and once it is leaving the building, it'll be heading straight for the station. So the amount of time that you'll see this train on its highest idle and at its noisiest point, we're going to show an example of right now, which will be a minimal amount of time. And we will now head over. I'll have Kenny with me. He'll start to go through the process of the procedure of firing the train up, bringing it up onto power, and getting it ready to leave the station or the building, as we're giving an example of now. So if you guys want to follow me. Okay. Kenny is now heading over to the ground-powered box that provides the ground power for the train when it's plugged in overnight. Right now he's going through his safety procedure of unlocking and powering down the engine. We're now going to be watching Kenny go over to the engine itself and unplug the ground power cables. As of right now, the idle is comparable to as it was when it was plugged into ground power at its lowest. After Kenny completes removing the removal of the cables, he will then go up into the cab of the engine, where he will fire the engine up, or bring the engine up onto power, as we like to say. We call it firing up. And at that point, the engine will be at its highest idle until it leaves the building. From the time Kenny gets this train ready to go, and the time our crews come on duty and get out here and move the train, we're looking at a time frame of approximately 30 minutes, give or take, that this train will be sitting again at its highest noise level. And once everything is completed, mechanical and crew alike, train crew alike, this train will begin to make its move outside of the proposed building in the Brunswick area, and from there we'll go straight to the station. There'll be no layovers, no warming up periods. This train, once it's ready to go, will leave the building and move directly towards the station in Brunswick. So there'll be no lag time outside of the building once it's on its way. So Kenny has gone up in the engine now, and if you can hear the difference in sound, it's not a huge difference, but you can hear the engine now slowly coming up to idle, coming up in its RPM. In his hand is a blue flag. These are the safety features that mechanical department does to securely secure the train at night when it's being tested. While these things are up, no one is to access or get onto the train or move it or power it up or do anything. So as long as they have their blue flag protection up, it's in charge of the mechanical department, and it's safe and secure to be maintained and serviced at night. Right now, as you can hear, the engine has powered up. It's on high idle, and this is about as loud as the engine will become until it's ready to make its move out of the building itself. What we're going to do now is we're going to start to walk the other way. Normally in the morning when the mechanical department does get the train ready, they are going to begin here as we've shown and then work the way to the other end. And one thing I want you to note as we walk to the other end and Kenny continues to get the train ready to go, I want you to notice the difference in sound as we walk away from it, how you don't have to go very far before the sound level starts to drop. So here we are already, just not even half a coach length away from the engine itself. And you can already start to hopefully notice the drop in noise level. And we won't have to be too far away from that engine by the time we realize that there is a great drop in noise level. And if this is going to be sitting in a building, it's going to be very difficult to hear it all. I mean, right now we're outside down the Portland facility. Of course you can hear it, but here we are now almost 2 coach lengths away from the engine, approximately 160 feet, and the noise has dropped greatly. Kenny's going to continue to walk down the length of the train, where he will then go into the cab of the other locomotive. He will do a quick pre-departure inspection and make sure the paperwork and everything's in place as he did on the other end, along with working with the electrical cables to the ground power. Then he will remove the rest of the blue flag protection and the derail, and the train will be ready for the crew to come out and occupy. All right, and here we have Kenny returning from the other end of the train. He's finished his process of preparing the train for its trip, its first trip of the day. And this video has helped show the process that the mechanical department goes through in the morning, preparing the train for its departure, and the actual short amount of time that is spent during their process of having the engine on high idle. We are now awaiting the arrival of the train crew, who is now on duty and calling for messages and preparing their paperwork for the day. They will be coming out and they will be conducting a their own quick pre-departure inspection of the train, including brake tests and other things, which again won't take that much time. And realistically, you know, the time frame of approximately 30 minutes, give or take, can be expected to have this train sitting on its highest idle. And we must still reiterate the fact that this train will be inside a building.
On my right, you see the other drip pan where this locomotive is now setting over the drip pan. You just saw the burst of air that comes out of the air tanks, which continually dries the air and takes the moisture out. So the moisture doesn't go back through the train and cause problems. In the middle of the engine, I'll walk down to it. There's a red cap here on the side of the locomotive where every night we have a vendor that comes in and fuels these trains. They have oil pads that they put down on the ground. They have a 5-gallon pail that they also use, so that if there's any spill whatsoever, it is all contained. If it's a big spill, it goes into the drip pans and then goes into a oil separator, which captures all of the oil, and then it would be pumped out at a later date. So everything is kept as environmentally as clean as possible. Here we are, we've moved to the opposite side, which is actually the right front of this locomotive, number 79. We're still over the drip pan, and what we've moved over here to show you the exhaust, which is you go down the side of the engine and there's a door right in front of the 79, which is the number of the locomotive. That's the exhaust port of any fumes that come from this locomotive. You'll notice every now and then a very slight discoloration in the air, but it's almost virtually just clean air. You'll see more heat vibration than anything else. So these locomotives are very efficient and almost don't put out any smoke whatsoever. As you can see, further continuation of this exhaust that comes out of these locomotives. This exhaust is very, very minimal. It's so different than the old Alco locomotives that used to be in South Portland in Rigby Yard. When they started those in the morning, there was such a cloud of smoke that it engulfed the yard, and they'd have to let them set outdoors and idle to warm up for a long period of time. These are almost virtually no exhaust whatsoever, so there's no comparison between the old and the new. As you're seeing now, the train is starting to leave the mechanical facility. It's going to go down through a series of switches to leave the mechanical facility to go out onto the main line, which will then come right up behind us here onto the main line at the loading station where the train will board its passengers and get ready to depart for Boston.